Welcome to the Barrel Racing Discussion Forum. I'm Lisa Johnson. We are back here today to have another conversation with the wonderful Paul Humphrey. But we have also brought in my husband, Adam Johnson, and he comes from the reining background. He trains reining horses professionally with Casey Hinton Quarter Horses. So we're going to have a little bit different kind of discussion today.
I think what I'd like to talk about first is, I travel a lot. I give a lot of clinics, meet a lot of people, are involved with a lot of different horses. And I find that one of the most common issues is that shoulder control. And really teaching that horse how to maneuver that front end and both sides of the body, not just one side. And so many people have trouble with that inside shoulder, and they'll just camp on that side. And the next thing you know, the outside of the body is lost. So give us your take on that and how you actually like that horse to be between your hands.
It really starts back to when they're a 2-year-old. Very early on, we want them to basically follow that nose, but then our emphasis goes to following the shoulder. We want to feel those front feet. When that nose goes over here, we want those front feet to go with it. And then in turn with the shoulder, the rib cage comes, and then it's just an evolution of, for us, for the reiners, we have spins. And it just kind of starts there. But ultimately, our end goal, once we start them, we train on them for about 1.5 years before our maturity comes around, and we have to be one-handed. So the more broke they are, they're in between those reins, and it starts from there.
So I think, in reality, a barrel racer's got to get to one hand too, because we turn those barrels one-handed. So, in your opinion, does it take 2 hands to train a horse?
Well, you have to start two-handed.
Right.
You've got to start two-handed, but if you had it, and Casey, my boss says it's a journey, right. And it really is.
Right.
Like I said, from the time we start them, we're on those things and training on them for 1.5 years before we get to where we're kind of happy with them, but they're still never really truly broken.
Oh, exactly.
But yes, two-hand. But if we know where we're going, we want to be in one hand, train one hand, get them to where they're finished.
Right.
Yeah, one-handed. There's no reason to not go around a barrel one-handed.
Exactly. And I think that once you get them connected, then you got to start, like you said, working them one-handed too to get used to that.
Yeah, you kind of have to throw them off in the deep end. You've got to start two-handed. Once you think, okay, well, I think they're all right, we'll go to one hand and see what happens.
Exactly.
It might fall apart, but it's going to happen. You won't know until you try, and then you'll see where your holes or maybe a step that you missed might be.
Right. Exactly.
Well, I can say I'll bring videos home, or we'll have videoed some colts here, and I'll show him the videos and be really proud of my colts. And he'll be proud of them too, but he'll say, it's time to see where your mistakes are. You need to ride one-handed,
right.
Or you need to, even, it sounds silly, but go to that rope rein. Like, because I like riding in my split reins, and he'll get after me about, you need to put that rope rein on, and you just need to see what your training has left you.
I've even incorporated some one-handed drills into the clinics, and I'm going to tell you something. It's really amazing because you kind of, or the riders figure out that maybe I'm not sure what to do with my hand, because they're either two-handed or they're running.
Yeah,
I think you need to work at that one.
And I completely agree. I mean, as far as I think as trainers, sometimes you get stuck in that trainer mode.
Oh, yeah.
You go to two hands, or two hands, or two hands, and it almost at times it feels awkward when you go to one. If you don't maybe, like in our position, if you don't maybe show a lot, if you stay at home, ride a lot of colts, when you do go to one hand, you get on that older show horse.
Right.
It almost feels more foreign to be here, doing things one-handed as opposed to two, because that's where your comfort level is.
Right.
But you've gotten, it's habits that are sometimes hard to break, just if we all have them.
Exactly.
But to put yourself one hand, okay, this is what I'm going to do, this is where I want to be, how do I went through a pattern, this didn't work, or this didn't feel right, how do I make it get better?
Right. Yeah, and I just think where the miscommunication is a lot of people try to just teach a horse one-handed, and I really think there's too much body there. You've got to, like you said, start two-handed, and then you go over to one, and that two-handed is what's going to make that one hand work.
And just going back to making sure that, to me, and what I call some of the basics are there. As long as those basics are there, you're patient and follow the process, it'll eventually come around. I mean,
he said the magic word, basics. At least have a base to
And
go back to.
patience.
And patience, yes. Patience is very important.
Patience. You know, like a guy told me years and years ago, and it makes a lot of sense, and you never really think about it. But if the horse gained 1% of their 100% God-given natural ability every day, it'd only take 100 days to get them broke.
Right.
And if you think about it, I mean, we camp on these things for how long? You might ride them for 2 years before you really think they're broke. So there's going to be peaks and valleys. There's going to be days where you gain 2-3%. Next day you might lose 10.
You might.
It's just, that's what it is. I mean, if it was easy, everybody would do it.
But yeah, and that's really I really wanted to cover that because I think shoulder control is one of the common issues with the barrel horse because that involves so many things: approaching the barrel, finishing the barrel, the turn itself. I mean, it's got to be connected. It's got to work. So that's really good. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to pick up in the arena so that Adam can show us some different things that we use to get the shoulder control that we were talking about in the video. He's going to show how him and I kind of have come to do it, not only on his reiners, but on my barrel horses. We like to say, people say something about starting them, and you couldn't come out here and tell the difference between my 2-year-old barrel horse and his 2-year-old reiner in the first 90 days. We're doing the same stuff on both of them.
Right, and I think it really doesn't matter what discipline you're gonna do. I think breaking a horse is breaking a horse, and body movement is body movement, and you're all gonna have a course to go through. So I think it really doesn't matter. And I think if more people would look at it like that, you might have less issues. I believe.
Yeah, I think going and riding with someone. I mean, I love it that people want to come take lessons from me. I love it that people want to come take lessons from people like Paul, but I think that so much can be taken from going and finding people like my husband and actually riding with them. So we're going to let him now show you kind of some of the stuff that we do to get the shoulder control. This is a 5-year-old stud. He's kind of been through some of this, but actually I've not done it with him in a while, so we'll see how it goes.
Once we get him out in the arena, out of the round pen, I'll spend a lot of time just walking around, just getting to follow that nose. And sometimes, most of the time, once you've gotten out in the arena, if I can try and show it on him, they'll walk around, get too much bend. If I can get him to kick his hip out here, they'll get too much bend and his feet are going out there. I just wait it out. Get him to follow that nose, maybe help him with a little outside rein, block that a little bit. Once they kind of take one step, there, turn them loose. You got to have a reward at the end, at the end of that, so they know what they're supposed to be doing. You want to show them what to do and what not to do. And once they've evolved and kind of gotten a little bit broker, this one I can kind of jump out there and show you some of the drills that I think is really, really good. And that's reiner, especially a cow horse, and I think in the barrels as well. It'll really help kind of isolate those shoulders. This one, I can kind of pull that outside rein across his neck, kick those front feet around there a little bit. He kind of kicked his hip out, so I'm going to stay after him a little bit more. So I don't really get any more with my hands there. I use a little more feet because ultimately the shoulders and the rib cage goes falling outside of that circle, so I don't want it to go outside. I want it to come here, step around there. The shoulders ended up coming in between my hands. So once they've kind of gotten that down to a walk, I'll go over and use a fence. If you don't have a fence, I guess just work on it more outside without the fence. So a lot of times what I'll do, I'll just kind of walk them around here in about an 8 or 10 foot circle. Get that nose tipped in. I'll stop, back him up a step, come through there. He stayed on his back end. He stayed loaded up on his back feet. just walk through there and let me pull that nose where his front feet and shoulders would come through there. Stop him, load him up. Try and follow that nose a little bit. Then I'll end up, once they kind of get comfortable with a walk, I'll draw them around. Same thing, use that fence. Stop, back them up. Nose goes, then the front feet and shoulder follow. Try and stay in a little smaller circle. Fred's a little fresh. Stop. Engage. Right there. You want them to try and finish a little more on their own. You know, you can always break it down and slow it down if it doesn't feel right. And as they get comfortable, you can ask a little bit more. Whatever they're comfortable with, whatever you're comfortable with at the time. That's the big thing. Come through here. Stop. Back. Nose, front, feet, shoulders. And then everything else should fall into place. Stop, back, shoulders. I mean, and again, it's a process. They're going to go through there. They'll start anticipating it. You might have to jog 3, 4, 5 circles before you get a stop. But that's kind of the basics we started teaching our 2-year. You know, I think would be good for the 2-year-olds to learn how to control those shoulders. Use that fence as an aid. There's nothing wrong with that. You're not going to use it long term, but in order to establish and show them what you want them to do, I think it's a good thing. I think that's how it starts.